My man,
What's going on, G? What's going on?
how was your training session today?
Training was brilliant, man. Training, big shout out first off the bat, Jimmy Judo Wallhead. What a
Yeah.
legend. What a legend, man. This guy, um, I think he's the most um, helpful in so many ways when it comes to striking, when it comes to being on your feet. And obviously, he has judo and he has jiu-jitsu background. He's a black belt judo. He's a brown belt jiu-jitsu, I think, but basically a black belt. Um, It's just immense, man. So when someone's just like you're in someone's presence who's so deep in a field. We were
Mm.
talking about it today a little bit. That the knowledge just emanates from everywhere. Like as soon as you're around them, you just feel like you're leveling up, and that's how I feel when I'm around Jimmy.
Mm.
Right? He's and it's super
Respect.
fun as well. It's super fun. It's a lot of these people. They can go down the route of becoming very OCD and very kind of like snippety, and it's like because there's so many things buzzing around in their head, they almost become a slave to it a little bit. But with Jimmy, it's just fun. Everything's fun. Everything's kind of like, yeah, obviously we get work done too. We're not just farting around the whole time. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's great. It's great. So we just finished that session off. Most Sundays we go down and see him. Um, it's just a blast. So anybody in the Leicester area who wants to get into mixed martial arts, wants to learn how to box, wants to learn how to kickbox, judo, jiu-jitsu, hit up Hardy Wallhead. It's a gym in Colville. Um, Brilliant, man. Brilliant. Absolutely epic.
Sick, man. It's great. Great Sunday.
Oh, too right,
Um,
man. Great way to start Sunday. Just kind of get up, do a little bit of client work, and then just be like, okay, training with Jimmy.
mm. Epic, man. I remember pre-lockdown days, we'd head over to Ray Stevens Academy
Yeah.
and do the Sylvia sesh, the group of us, 2 hours, man. That was a hell of a Sunday.
The good days, the good old days.
The good old days. Well, we replaced it with a pretty good habit over here, man.
Yeah, say again.
We've replaced it with a pretty good habit over here, though,
Oh
right?
yeah, man. Too right. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a great shout. When are we gonna do the podcast? When mid roll, like
Yeah, exactly.
just
Right now, it'd be
commentate.
yeah. It's like session would be just about finishing up,
Yeah.
and we ain't burning the same number of calories doing this, but it's okay. It's okay. So,
Sylvia would just be saying no, jackknife. So we'd be like,
yeah, exactly. We've just been training for 2 hours. We're gonna do jackknives, and then there'll be Jude, special guest number episode 11, who'd be like, "Yeah, go on, Sylvia, give me something more. What else? What else you got for me?" Like, shut up, Jude. Shut up.
damn that woman and her slow oxidative fibers. Damn her. Sorry, the rest of us ain't like that, The rest of us got some bastard shit. It's done now.
Exactly. Exactly. Too
Tuck
funny,
jumps.
man.
Yeah, tuck
Exactly.
jumps. Tuck jumps are not my friend after about 6. So like,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
good.
it.
I'm good now. Yeah,
We're
yeah.
good. We're good. But tell me, connect the dots, Brown, today.
Oh,
What's
connect the
what's that
dots,
about?
Brown. This has been this week, bro. This has been this week. So where do I start with this, man? Where do I start with this? I suppose I just got to start connecting the dots and we'll get
Yeah,
around, right?
yeah.
Um,
Wherever the first place takes you.
Conversation with TJ. So obviously, shout out to last week's special guest,
Mm.
TJ. Him and I are lucky enough to have like a really good relationship, really good working relationship. And we just talk about a lot of stuff. Talk about our childhood. Talk about our business relationship, our work relationship, our just being close and being kind of where we are, right? Like similar to how you talk about, well, how I imagine you would talk with Sam, like brothers, like in that realm. And through those relationships, we're able to just unpack a lot of shit that's happened, and it's not always bad, it's not always good. It's just stuff that's happened, and then on the back of unpacking stuff, you end up connecting the dots, right? You end up kind of seeing, oh, right, well, I used to do a lot of this. I used to be this way, whether it be an emotion or anger or like frustration or like a closed mindset. I used to be quite like this. And at the time, I had this, that, and the other in my life. I spent a lot of time with this person. I spent a lot of time going here. I spent a lot of time. My energy wasn't quite channeled, so it produced this person. And it's an amazing medium in which to just get to express. It's almost like therapy, right? It's almost like therapy where you have somebody you trust, and we're not always sitting in a comfortable room. Sometimes we're punching each other in the face, and sometimes it's between rounds, and sometimes we just woke up in the morning. It's friggin' early, and sometimes we're just going for a drive or whatever, right? So it's a thing that's allowing me to kind of go back into my life and realize, like we talked about last week with the story where we met at Pure Gym. and how at certain times in my life I've not been as aware of certain things, and sometimes I've been hyper aware of certain things, and it comes back down to the same thing. Like nothing is necessarily good, nothing's necessarily bad, right? Like your strengths can actually be your undoings, and your things that are your current undoings can soon rise to open doors that eventually make you develop strengths. So it's just that's the theme of this week, where we've had a few of these amazing conversations on the back of the podcast. So I've got to thank you for that, and just like setting everything up and kind of having this platform. Obviously, it allows me to access this talking. That's the start of all this stuff, right? Like you hear about like therapy, you hear about kind of creating that dialogue. Start talking. Just start anywhere, like you just said to me. Like start anywhere, we'll connect the dots, right?
Yeah.
And this is definitely something that helps out with that. So we've had loads of those conversations this week, and it's led me to a place where it on the back of it, you have another conversation. For instance, like yesterday, having a conversation with a family member, and you're able to relate and pick back into memories and pick back into times and say, "Oh, remember this time?" Or "This is how I actually felt at that time." And the other person then jumps in and has their own input, has their own input on things and proceedings. So yeah, it's really wholesome, man. It's really wholesome, and I this is a quick side note. In fact, I'll save the side note. Yeah, that's been this week, bro. That's been this week. Yeah.
Beautiful. So like you've had these conversations and it's just brought to light a few things from the past. You're like, oh, I can connect the dots now.
That's it. That's literally it. That's literally it. And when you have somebody like TJ and I have had very interesting and similar lives in some ways, very, very dissimilar lives in other ways. But I think at the root, both of us are just kids, right? We're just kids who kind of been exposed to life in different ways, and then now we're coming together and kind of sharing the experience with each other. And some things cross-sect, and some things are so different that it's taken me years to understand him in some ways, and him in some ways to understand me. But now it's like, oh shit, I now know why you get anxious around this, or I now know why you don't quite understand this. It's because of a number of things, but it's just the process of understanding another person and really developing a deep understanding. I think that when you have that across the room from somebody, you have a deep understanding, you can accomplish a lot with that person. You can accomplish a lot, not just from a business setting, or not just from a training setting, but just from a life progress setting, because now you have that skill. You have that skill of being able to talk to somebody, even if you have no time with this person. You can help them come forward and tell their story to you. So now you do understand them, and that leads to more and more amazing. It leads to collaboration. It leads to just that again, that understanding, which is just an amazing thing, man. Super amazing thing.
Yeah, man. What would you say is like has been fundamental to developing that understanding?
Time,
Right.
and just it's interesting because you can think back, and you can almost want it to be a I wish we just had this conversation about 6 months ago, where like, for instance, we're training and I've had a frustration, and I wish I can think about it now that, oh, why didn't I just bring it up then? But really, it's not the way. The way is just to, in that moment, if I had brought it up then, I wouldn't have had the impetus that I now have with it, because I've left it for a few months, and now I've been able to look at it from a different perspective. Maybe if I had brought it up then, it would have taken on a different light. I don't know if that's coming across too clearly, but basically what I'm trying to say is that everything in its time, everything in its place. Like,
Yeah.
don't push the issue. Just kind of now that I can look back on something and be like, oh, it's fine that it didn't roll out this way, because it rolled out there eventually. All things will eventually fall into their place, but how they get there sometimes is really interesting. So yeah, to answer your question, when I was working away in London, and I knew that I wanted to come back to Leicester and potentially work with TJ, I knew that I had to cultivate more of a relationship than what we did have. So it was a case of coming back, spending time, and like it. And he's been amazing in that, because he instrumentally from the start almost like took the head trainer role in some of our training, and was just like, yep, I'll assemble this and I'll assemble that, and I kind of just show up. My job is to just be present, and yeah, it's all just roll from there, bro.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, I like what you say there, time and place as well, because you want to understand where you're coming from first with the reaction that you have to what the other person's said or done, so that you can then reflect. So you can reflect on it a little bit and then go back to them and be like, oh, you know what? This is how this played out. In my head, let's have a discussion about it. That's a smart thing to do. And I think the more we do that, the better we can start doing that in real time as well. So in that moment, you can start being like, hang on a sec, this is bringing this up. It's just what we say all the time, man. Putting the reps in. You put the reps in to get good at that, and eventually you can actually do that in that moment, in that situation.
Too right, man. Too right. Well, it reminded me of that Eric Thomas video, right? Well, we're gonna get hyped, G. We're gonna get hyped.
Oh boy, here it comes. Here it comes. I'm beating my chest already, man.
He says, I heard it, right? I heard it. Practice make perfect. He's like, no, perfect practice make perfect.
Yeah, boy.
And it's basically saying like, I could have spoke out in the moment, but that's not the best rep to do there. The best rep to do there is what you alighted to. We talked about this a couple of podcasts ago, which was, okay, some things made you feel a certain way, good or bad. Take it, digest it, view your own mind and view yourself in that moment. Go away with it. Don't have the insecurity to think that issue or that occasion isn't going to arise again. Because for me, it's born out of insecurity sometimes. I feel like if I something's happened, I've had a reaction, boop, I want to say something quickly because I don't think too far to delve into why or whatever, and then that can sometimes go wrong. Whereas if I can just sit back and have the patience to view the whole situation, well, then perspective is mine, right? I can really own the situation. I can conduct myself in a way that's going to be productive, well, more productive than if I just jumped in. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do need to jump in, but the majority of the time, it's much better to just kind of bide your time and slowly connect the dots. It's just really impressive, man. It's really impressive how it's quite like inspiring and it gives you a lot of hope. You know what I mean? It gives you a lot of hope because now you've made something that you can really build off of. And I think that's something you were talking about earlier, is that like once you start doing the perfect rep, your ability to use all your reps become perfect now. Most of your reps should become perfect. You know what I mean? Your form in a conversation is improved now. So it's just more winning. That's what it is, man. It's more winning.
Yeah, man. Exactly. Keep winning, man. It's just winning upon winning with that. Yeah, I like because there was something my housemate showed me this week. It's a guy, I think the account is called Visualize Value. So it's really, really cool because like, you can take a quote or you can take a statement or you can take an idea, and he does it does an excellent job of just like helping you visualize it. And one of the ones that he did is like, you had a dot in the middle and a circle around it, another circle around it. And, and that was just basically, this is reality. And then the next slide was perspective. And what the perspective was a dot outside those three circles, but that dot's vision was only catching one side of the circle. So you can probably like visualize that as well. It's like you got a whole circle and you're like the whole circle's highlighted and you can see this is reality, and then perspective is basically just a segment of that circle because that's all you can see. If you look at that circle from the point of view of the dot outside that circle, then all you're going to be able to see is that one segment, right? And it's a beautiful little visualization. And what you realize, like what is a really good thing, what that's excellent at helping you see is that you never see the whole picture. It's too hard to see the whole picture. So what you want to actually go about doing is do what you did, which is reflect based on what you currently know, see what you don't know, add that into your arsenal, and then your perspective can widen. Because if you can't go through that process, then that perspective actually starts to shrink. It shrinks. And that's the kind of shit that we see happening like nowadays as well with outrage culture and everything like that. Is just like people's perspective keeps shrinking. They don't really want to know why somebody else is saying what they're saying. They just say, oh, you know what, that's not in agreement with what I say and what I've thought, so fuck that guy or fuck that person. Is like, I'm just not gonna entertain it. And you then try and bring people down as a result of it, when really all you want to do is ask the question. It's a hard thing to do because it triggers a part of our brain which is more likely to light up, and like, I don't know if you saw it as well, but like I've been saying it for weeks as well. I was like, Huberman's going to be on Rogan soon. It's like he just has to be. He was there 3 days ago. So Andrew Huberman, that neuroscientist, ended up being on Rogan like 3 days ago, and then he was talking about, he was making the I can't remember if it was that one or if it was another podcast as well. But basically, he did say it in Rogan, which was experiments done like in the 60s where basically you could give somebody the option to, like, you press a button and it would light up certain parts of your brain, and then you press a button and you get sexually aroused, and you press a button and you would feel happy, you press a button and you feel sad, and because it just triggered those parts of your brain. And then the one that people continually liked going back to was when you press a button and it provides a mild sense of frustration and anger. So on the face of it, is like, what the hell's going on here? Why do people want to just keep pressing the button where they experience a bit of frustration and anger? It's like, there's a few different reasons, but one of them being that you need a slight state of agitation to move forward in life. So, on that basic evolutionary level, if you're not slightly agitated to go look for food or go look for water or go look for shelter, is like, you're going to die, basically. So you need that slight level of agitation to move forward in life. And you need that, like, in your goals that you perceive in our modern day world, is like, okay, I have a goal to, sustain this number of clients and make this kind of income, is like, and it's, so I need a little bit of agitation, which is going to allow me to move forward towards that goal. If I don't have it, then I'm going to be too passive. I'm just going to be lying in bed all day, and I'm just going to like let that by. It's not gonna come into fruition. So there's that aspect of it as well. And then the other side of it is like, there's other stuff that I've read about, like cognitive biases as well, how that plays into it. And so we got that kind of like frustration and anger going on, and so if you come across a counter opinion, it triggers first and foremost a bit of frustration and anger, and that does make you feel good on a little bit of a level. And so you just shut that different perspective away, when really the skill is in being able to go, hang on a second, that's just made me feel a certain way. Why has it made me feel a certain way? And I want to lean into that a little bit so I can understand the other perspective. And if I don't do that, then my world shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. Whereas if I can try and understand the other perspective, I don't have to agree with it. I just need to kind of try and figure out where they're coming from. And like, as an example, I did that like last week, trying to have a look at say like postmodernism. I was like, okay, I've heard this term being thrown around. I know people who talk about it. I don't really understand it. I'm going to delve into it a little bit, and because I'm coming at it from a point of view where I've not heard good things about it. And so I'm like, okay, I've not heard good things about it. I can understand, because I recognize this subset of people that are being lumped into this category of like, postmodernist thinkers, because I've seen them. I've seen these kinds of people exist in like in our society, and you can also have a look at that on a grander scale and be like, okay, well, what's going on is characteristic of these. What's going on has the characteristics of these kinds of people, and so I was like, okay, I've seen it from that lens, but I need to try and understand the other side of it. I want to understand it from that postmodernist point of view. And I'm just, because it's like, why do people think of them this way? Why do they think this of themselves? And, what is it that they're actually saying? What is it that they're actually doing? And is what I've heard about them true, basically. And so, yeah, so that's an example of like, I've widened my perspective, so trying to see things from the other point of view. And like, I can initially see where you're trying to come from, but I don't agree with anything you're saying, but that's cool, because at least I know that is out there. And hopefully I know how to communicate better with that line of thinking if I ever have to, if it ever comes down to it, if I have to have a good discourse with it. So there's, and then, yeah, got to put the reps in that, and put more and more reps in that, and then I'll be able to do that kind of critical thinking, like that top-down approach of, okay, first of all, we have a very limbic response to things, i.e. we want to act on our emotion, we want to act on that feeling that we get, but we have control over that if we if we just start thinking a little bit better, if we introduce a bit more like critical thinking, use that part of our brain which can push back against that and help us balance that out a little bit. And so we have that capacity, and you just got to put the reps in and then see that different perspective.
Love that, man. So we went so many ways with that conversation, bro. So needed for people to understand that. For me to understand that. Just think back, like being a kid and frustration and kind of anger, and I remember just genuinely having a lot of rage and like a lot of anger as a child, right? But not really kind of ever questioning or even thinking to question, oh, maybe I should just think about this a bit differently, because you just don't have those reps, or you don't have that rationality as a child, right? You just don't, and sometimes you're not even exposed to it, and so you would have no awareness of that, right? And then it's it's just, I think that's so important for so many people in the world, and I think that's how you actually become very effective for a very large amount of people, is because you can help create the mesh between these two opposing dialogues. And
Absolutely.
then once you live in the middle, right? I've always said this, like, I remember my dad talks to me all the time. He's like, the worst place to be is in the middle. And I understand the concept of why he's saying that, because he's saying it from the perspective of like, you don't make a decision, you get stuck, you kind of feel a little bit squashed on both sides. And I completely understand that. And that's 100% in that context is valid. But from the perspective of like being right down the center and seeing the benefits here, and also seeing the benefits here, and seeing the drawbacks here and see the drawbacks here, that I think that is such a powerful place to be, because like you said, it provides perspective. It also provides the ability to, sounds a bit odd, and I don't know if this is the right phrase to use here, but play both sides. And I think the ability to permeate and take the good things here, and bring them together and be like, you all want the same thing, really. But maybe these things that are the negatives over here, or that can be seen as the negatives by these guys, they might need to go. You know what I mean? So like you said, critical thinking in that sense, I think is so vital, so vital, and it's a skill that you see lacking in a lot of like when we talked about coaches last week. I think it doesn't, you just don't see it. You don't see it, and but it's interesting. But I'm picking on coaches because obviously I am one, but I think it's just people in general. I think it's people in general who sometimes haven't had the contact with the right kind of people in their lives, so therefore they're just spilling out in their lives the way they've always spilled out. Whereas like you come into contact with somebody, with one person, for me it's like one of my flatmates last year, Dan, coming into contact with him, it was just it was almost like an unlocking of, oh, but why do you think like this? And all of a sudden, you're just like, what's behind this door? Like, I've never been here before. And I know this exists. I've seen it off there in the ether, but I've never been there and visited it. But now I'm opening this door, and now it's like, oh shit, there's a whole other universe here, right? That's the power, man. That's the power.
That's it. Exactly. You just realize it's a beautiful thing. I've had that happen. You realize it's like, wait a second. For your own self as well, you're like, wait, why do I even think that way? Like, where did that even come from? Why do I believe this to be true? And a lot of it just comes down to, it's true because of evolution. It's true because of, society. It's true because of that. But you just ask a little bit, and there's a bunch of things that are you don't think about and are true, and so there's a bunch of things that you think about and are true, and you start thinking about them as, oh, okay, this is why it's true. But then there's a bunch of things you think about and they're accepted as truths, and then you just go, wait, hang on, why would that be true? And then so just like you get to mingle with a part of your brain you'd never do, right? You just chat to a part of you that you never have to, and you're like, wait a second, what's going on here? Why did I never consider this before? It's like, well, the questions never needed to be asked, but when the question does need to be asked, you start to go down that route, and it's easy to be like, you know what, fuck it, this is too difficult to think about.
That's it.
Right? Exactly, because you just
proper mind fuck.
That's it, exactly. And it's like, it's too difficult to think about, so you think, my time's better spent doing other stuff. But at the end of the day, I just feel like, actually, it's your time isn't better spent than actually thinking about what you're doing with yourself. Like that's an important activity to partake in, because you got to figure out your own shit. And a good way to figure out your own shit is, be asked questions and ask the question as well. And I think there was something there about like sitting in the middle, being able to see both sides that you mentioned. Is like, I don't know, it's kind of left me a little bit. It might come back, but it was. But yeah, that's you got to be able to do that. You go, oh, that was it. It was just it reminded me of so what your dad, like what you're saying there about sitting in the middle and being able to see both sides, is it reminded me of something I read from Jordan Peterson, where he said basically, thinking is really hard, and that doesn't sound like quite much of a thing to say, but it is. Is like so there's the automatic thought is like thoughts that just pop up into your mind, but actually, if you want to be critical, if you want to understand something, that's a difficult thing. That's a learned skill. Like you got to learn how to do that really, really well. Because one of the things you pointed out is one, like a good way to do that is basically create, like almost like you're creating different versions of yourself who believe in opposing things. So it's like, say I believe in one thing. Let's take a rudimentary example. It's like, I believe training should be, it should be progressive periodization. And it's like, okay, but then I need another side of me which should say, actually, no, I believe it should be completely undulating, and I can do one session like this, and I can do another session like this, and it doesn't matter because as long as progress is still in line. And then it's like, okay, I need to have a dialogue between those two people within me, and be like, what's the pros of progressive periodization? What's the pros of undulating periodization? What's the cons? Where do we see eye to eye? And then what can we settle on? Because things aren't just straightforward. It's like things aren't just like I'm going to take it for what it is, and that's a given. There's so many things that we like, for example, like the irrational. It's whether we can control it or not is another question. But if we think about it, is like flying, for example, is a clear one. Is like, you're going to be, I don't know how many times more likely to be hit by a car across the road than you are going to be flying our airplane. So why the hell are we so scared of flying? And it's so that makes it an irrational fear, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can control that fear. But if we start to understand it, and then we can start to apply the techniques we need to be able to apply, so that we can actually realize that feel it on a fundamental level, not just intellectually know it, because those are two different things. Then you can actually start to control that fear of flying, and then you can overcome that fear of flying, and then it can be something which is level, it's neutral, it's not the thing that terrifies you. If anything, crossing the road should terrify you a hell of a lot more, right? It's like, but we don't want that to be a thing that scares the hell out of you either. So no. You want to, like, it's just basically developing that level of understanding, and thinking about things critically, having that conversation with yourself, and like in kind of like these multiple kind of ways where you're asking the opposing side questions. And even better is like find somebody who is on the opposite side and actually ask genuinely curious questions, as opposed to go into it, because I'm guilty of that as well. You go into it and you're like, I already know my stand, and I'm asking you a question because I want to prove my point of view, as opposed to I'm asking you a question because I genuinely want to know where you're coming from with this. Like, I want to understand that. I've shifted that a lot, like over to the second part, the latter thing of just like being genuinely curious. But still, like, there's the element of skepticism within, which is like, why do you believe that? I've got this belief, but why do you believe that way? That's another skill to develop, and I think that's an important thing to be developing. You got to be able to have good conversations with people so that you can figure shit out about life a little bit more effectively than if you're just kind of stuck in your own little bubble.
That's the one, bro. You said to drop the word at the end there, effective. 100%, man, 100%. Like you touched earlier on, like, it may seem like it's a ball ache to sit and unpack yourself and see, like, why do I go this way? I think I said it a few podcasts ago. I was like, people like just are born and then they start turning left and they just continue turning left and they never turn right. It's like that you would never question, because you don't know any different. And this is why it's why it's so important to have like a diverse amount of people around you, to give you the alternate perspectives and just kind of show you that, life can be selected and chosen for different scenarios, for you to kind of almost like select this file. I want this file for this reason. I need to show empathy right now because like me being confrontational right now is going to destroy this relationship. Okay, well, so let me just take out this memory card and put this one in. You know what I mean? Like that's the autonomy with which I think ideally I want to kind of get to, and that helps so infinitely because it literally makes you so pliable. You can be put in any setting and you can you figure it out because you know that so long as I show genuine interest in the other person's perspective, the other thing's perspective, I'm only going to learn, and through learning I can only move forward. You know what I mean? Like kind of the loss is only within my control. That's basically I think what we're saying. Like the loss here is me grabbing hold of my viewpoint and sticking it to the ground and be like, I'm not moving from here, because then there's no progress there. You already have that. You already have those reps. You know what I mean? Go and get some new ones. Go and kind of explore the boundaries of your mind and actually push forward. But I think it can be a very scary thing to do because you see it. Like I see it in my own family. People that are so dead set on one way of being, and like it's like an automatic response. These like creepy, not creepy, but like you're on the phone, like, and you press like, please select a movie from the viewage, and you're just like, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and it's like, Police Academy. It's like, no, not Police Academy, mate. I said Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Police Academy 3. It's like, get off, man. Like, those are the people that you see. That that when you say you got flashbacks of Hightower now, yeah. Hightower.
Exactly. And like the imitator, the guy with all the impressions.
Yeah.
Like that's an excellent analogy. I was like, where is this going? And when you finish it, I was like, I know exactly where this is going. That's so good. It's like no matter what you say, the person's saying the same shit. Yeah. Wow.
They only have one preset program, and they've done a bajillion reps going the wrong way. So it's like getting this person to come back. You see it. You see it's like you could smell bacon cooking, right? Like I don't know bacon, but I mean, you the analogy, right? You could smell the brain kind of frying a bit as like it starts to like, oh shit, plug this out, put that in, put this. Oh, we don't know what to say here. Like this person's making me feel uncomfortable, so I have no basis to follow this conversation. So like that's compliment to Jordan Shadow because he brought this up in a recent lecture where he's like, that's where people will just like drop a smoke bomb and they'll try and leave the conversation. And I thought it's hilarious. Like you see it, like you picture like Mr. Burns, like, and then try and like run away, and it's like, oh man, like oh well. Anyway, it's like, no, don't just anyway me. Like we're having a chat here. Like if you don't know something, just tell me you don't know. And like you said earlier, postmodernism. I ain't got a clue, G. I ain't got a clue. I don't know what that means. I remember hearing it in art. I think people paint a certain way or whatever. I don't know. That's my only reps I have with that word is Miss Fox in geography, in art in Grangefield School. Talk about postmodernism. That's it. That's what I got. You know what I mean? So like, tell me a bit more. Bring me forward, G. What's postmodernism? But that's what you want for people, right? You want. Sorry, I'm going to go a bit longer, man. But you want people to have that because that inherently shows a lack of insecurity. Because at the root of doing that, you're not married to one way of being. Like there's so many ways of being, and in accepting somebody else's viewpoint, you're almost accepting your own flaws, and that's so important, so conducive to progress, right? And I think people it's born out of insecurity. It's born out of like seeing the older generation do it a certain way and then being like, oh yeah, and then you just adopt the same methodology. You see like that I used to do it. I used to walk like my dad walked. I used to talk like my dad talked, and then after a little while, I'm just like, well, this is not really getting me far. Like I don't know, because I need to form my own basis, and like that's very much how I developed as like younger years. I had to almost like break the mold and then just remake who I actually want to be, and like who I want to be has ears like this, like who I want to be has a shaved face. You know what I mean? Like I've decided this stuff along the way, but when you're first coming into the world. I think it's very much a adolescence thing where if you're a bit insecure, if you're a bit shy, you tend to just mold yourself around strong personalities. But it's be brave. I think that's the kind of the takeaways. Like, be brave and just kind of do your own, where you can start getting your own reps in, because that's going to make you much more, like you said, much more effective.
Fuck yeah, man. You said some
Yeah,
sick shit. The courage. That
oh,
video
yeah.
you sent me. You gotta have courage. That's sick.
Love
It's
that
like
guy,
a
man.
normal tone. It's like this guy is just giving 1 minute spiel about having courage, and he's just talking normal, and he just spouts out the courage. Oh, that's the new ET video right there.
Yeah.
That's the next one. That's
It's
another one to be
special.
able to fall back on.
It's
That was
special. I
special.
don't know what the guy's name is, but he literally just drops it a gear, and you can just hear the rev in his voice. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah,
this guy's got levels, man.
yes, man.
Yeah.
It was power. I felt that. That was epic. Bro. Accepting your flaws because you accept your insecurities. That's a beautiful line you just said there, man. I think that's what it is. It's like a lot of stuff we do born out of insecurity, but if we get a handle on the fact that our insecurities don't actually matter. They actually help us be better. That's what they are, because there's two ways. I think it's probably like two ways it can go. Is like the insecurity you can give it like an inordinate amount of respect and let it overtake you, or you can let it be what it is, that is showing you that there's something that you're not entirely delighted about with yourself. You know, it's a hole within yourself, which is like, all right, I'm happy for this insecurity because it's just showed me what I can become as a result of it. I think that's super. What you said there is just an awesome way of putting it.
Yeah. Super necessary, right?
Super necessary. It's like, I knew I couldn't find the right word. Find the right phrase. I was like, what is the phrase? I had to rely on you. Super necessary. How could I forget it?
I got you, bro. I got you. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's so interesting, man. It's so interesting. I had a thought earlier. It's going to come back to me at some point. But yeah, it's just a deep topic, man. I think it's like I said, people feel it's definitely a breaking of the mold, which I think scares people.
Yes.
And yeah, I see it with the older generation in my family. It's like, you don't need to be like this, but you've got so many reps in being like this that you've almost like got no choice now. And that's a really sad existence, because like, again, this is from the programming seminar that I listened to with Prescript, and they were talking about how a good coach a bad coach is like a slave to the program that he's made. And if you make it too stringent and too kind of restrictive, you're almost like, no, you must do this on this day and must do this. It's like, no, we have to have that autonomy to be able to pivot and change and like throw in this and throw in that, based upon, we were talking about this before we came on, but like based on the situation, right? That's the subtext, is that the situation is the client. The client can come in on a good way or a bad way, and that client can be sub out client and put in human being at coffee shop. Like you can literally have any scenario there. But it's the autonomy to be able to change that we all need to have. And it's the, again, like I said, effectiveness, that we can be effective for all people. Yeah, and that's the goal, right? That's the goal. Like a friend of mine told me about this book that she was reading, and it was talking about a utopia. And this is a really interesting topic. I've never really considered it before she brought it up, but it was talking about like dystopias and utopias. And she was saying that like our perspective and our take on what a utopia is always depicted in a similar way. Like we automate all our lives. Like we have robots to fold our laundry, and robot to pick up our kids from school, and everything in our lives is so automated. And we live in the white picket fences, and we have like 3.5 kids. Like all the stuff is like so Stepford Wives, right? It's so clean and polished, where in effect what that does is it makes you so ineffective, because all of your evolution has kind of led to nothingness, and really all we are is forward moving objects. And I suppose and the point to her thing was that a utopia is actually somewhere where everybody is effective for a reason. Everybody is productive toward that one goal, which is like learning and becoming more resourceful and bringing that to the table, and then keeping that environment ultra strong. and there is no like wrong. There is just, okay, this is a perspective. What can we take from this? How can we move forward at the back of this? And that requires like, it requires participation on all fronts, but it requires empathy for yourself. It requires like knowing that you're not always going to have the answer, and that's okay, and knowing that somebody else might have the answer, and that's great, because it taught you how to learn and listen to somebody else also. And it didn't just mean that they were right, because sometimes you were going to be right. There's just so many ways of pivoting around this, but I think it definitely helps break the framework that society's kind of like stuck in right now, where it's like it's just a dog eat dog culture, which is it's ugly, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's that utopia dystopia thing is like, yeah, everybody thinks on the surface like that utopia is, you know, this is what we're going for, but that's actually, you know, that very quickly turns into dystopia, because you attain that. That's just like, you know, kind of instant gratification versus long-term reward is like that's the combination of that, because you think you want that, and then when you get it, you have it, and it's a nice to have for a few days. You know, it's like everything's super chill, everything is fine and dandy, and you know you got shit happening for you, but like you said, you lose your effectiveness. And a big driver for us as a species is effectiveness, is to move forward. And if we feel like we don't have to do that, it's taken care of for us by something else, and it's like, well, actually our reason for being is gone, is lost. That's that's what I kind of think about that on like on one level is you if you hope for that kind of thing, then like, you know, good luck enjoying it for the long term. It's just not going to happen. And then that's another question itself as well, which is what that utopia you create for yourself, is it all about enjoyment all the time? Is it all about happiness all the time? I think that's I think the more I think about that, I think that's somewhere where we go wrong, where everybody thinks it's about being happy, and really it's not. It's like it's about doing things meaningfully, because if it's about being happy, then what you and only being happy, then what you have going for yourself is basically saying that being sad is not worthwhile, is not good for you. The opposite end of that is a bad thing, but it's not. In again, it's like it's the same thing as like being insecure. If there's something that makes you feel unhappy, if there's something that makes you feel sad, it's like, okay, that's something to learn from and excel out of. And so basically the answer is like, it seems like the best solution is to live meaningfully, is to live with something that you get fulfillment from. And automatically when you do those things that fulfill you, they're not always going to be pleasant, but you're better off for having done them. Like on a very simple level, training is one of those things. It's you spend an hour 3-4 times a week training, and you know, if that's your structure, you spend 3-4 hours a week training, and you're pushing yourself, doing something where you're pushing yourself beyond your limits, and it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good like while you're doing it, but if you keep attaching the meaning behind it, as in I'm doing this because there's a better version of myself at the other end of this, then you're always pushing the boundary of what's possible for yourself, and you're always improving and living towards your potential, and you're getting more juice out of life that way. And so everything that you do, almost by definition, has to have some struggle attached to it, because if it didn't, then nothing's ever really worthwhile. And if nothing's ever really worthwhile, then how can you attain any level of happiness within that? It's yeah, I think that's where that goes.
Yeah, man. It's a super cool topic. I think almost. Do you think it's born out of like, you know, how our development as a species was like, would have been quite tribal, would have been quite like what's the word I'm looking for? Quite singular in terms of, if you're with this tribe, they believe this, they worship this, and if you don't believe this, then we're going to come and take your shit. So in that sense, I need to align myself with one set of values and stick to my guns, because if I start chatting other shit, these guys are going to take me out into the woods and leave me there. Like,
Yeah.
and that could almost be like why you have this like unwillingness to waver, because it's just a hardwired program, right? I mean, the same way that we're hardwired now to think of all the variables and be cool with all of them. I imagine that in a day in, I suppose, yeah, we can say it now, like it's that would service you in some way. It would it comes down to like kind of that life or death, that survival instinct. It's fight or it's flight. Like it's there's no reasoning sometimes. It's just like let's just have it out here and now. And I think in that instance, which is probably where the world was, what, a couple hundred years ago, it's gonna serve you better to have those instincts in place. Whereas I think now, because the world is so much softer, it's in our favor to kind of be able to pivot and be able to kind of see, because the imminent threat of someone sticking a gun in your face is gone, right? Well, in a lot of the world. So yeah, maybe it's kind of a survival mechanism in a way. Whereas now we've almost come out of the cave and been like, oh, it's okay to think differently. Really,
Mm.
it is okay. Cool. Then let's do that. Let's do that for a while.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of what we do, a lot of the way we behave. Yeah, if we put that lens on it, the kind of that evolutionary lens. So, like a lot of our behaviors like don't necessarily make sense, but then do when we look at it from that perspective, because yeah, it's like you're in or out of the tribe, right? It's something as simple as that. So you've got to. What's that?
No. I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up.
Okay, cool. There's like you're either in or you're out of the tribe. So the values that you hold have to kind of align with the tribe, and if they don't, then you get booted out of the tribe. You kind of like you're left in the cold. You have no shelter, and you're fending for yourself, and that's a lot harder to do than fend with a group. So it takes balls, takes courage to be able to do your own thing in that way, and because you might not settle on a tribe for a little while, and so other people can look at you and be like, where's this person floating around? What's going on over here? And you don't people don't necessarily align with what you're doing, but and so it's just easier to subscribe to a point of view which you haven't really thought about, because if you try and go the other way, you've got a lot to lose for it. But I think there's a lot more to lose in terms of your own self-respect than the kind of connection that you have with people who you start to realize you don't actually resonate with. Because it's I think that's where
I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. Yeah. The way what you just described is I can relate it to TJ and myself, in the sense that obviously not that it's discrediting yourself, but or like not including you, but I'm saying the story that we told last time was that me coming into Pure Gym, him being at Pure Gym, we both were in that space, but we were cool being on our own. He was cool being on his own. I was cool being on my own. We hadn't yet subscribed to a belief, to a methodology, to a tribe. And we were okay being in the wilderness for a while and being kind of nomads. And I think that's what drew us to each other. Like, oh, okay, this is a guy also just floats by himself. He's there at 5 in the morning. I'm here at 5 in the morning. Like, yeah, maybe there is some common ground there. You know what I mean? There is the strength to say, yeah, I'm cool on my own. Like, I don't need a tribe. I don't need like kind of boys to run with. Not all the time anyway. You have obviously close friends, but I mean that's a different thing. So yeah, it's really interesting, man. Really, really interesting. It made me laugh, like when you said you're either in or out of the tribe, because like, do you have any things about you that trigger you in that way? So what triggers me, or what I mean by that is, what triggers me is that when, like, for instance, the way you hear about it, like someone got sick in the tribe, you would just be like, you're out. Like, we can't get sick. You're out. Like, the rest of us can't get what you have. You got to go.
Yeah.
And I legit have that. It's really bad. Like, but I also have it the other way. Like, if I'm sick, I'm gonna isolate myself. I'm like, even before this coronavirus stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be around you. I don't want to give you it. So like, I'm gonna be out for a while. See you later. Until my system sorts itself out. Like it's got it. It's fighting the war inside me. So like, let me just be on me. But when someone's sick around me, coughing, sneezing, spluttering, I'm about to throw an axe at your head. Like I'm just, it's done. Like I straight up, I don't want to be around you. I don't want
to put myself and you out of your misery. I'm going to throw an axe at you.
It's like, this is done now, yeah. So either you sort yourself out quick, or I'm gonna sort it out. So you pick. That's like a bit of the caveman still kicking around in me for sure.
Yeah. Brilliant. Like, what is that? What is that for me? What makes me want to throw an axe in someone's head? That's great. I will get. I do disregard. Oh, okay. So there's an example of this from a while back.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think. Oh, so it's like, I was trying to get some. I was trying to get some help about getting some blood tests done a long time ago. And so I was like, look, as a preventative measure, I want to get my bloods done so that I can see, if there's like, or whatever relevant testing it is, so I can see like, are there any deficiencies in my body? Do I have a high level of systemic inflammation, whatever it might be, which doesn't present itself physically, but, deficient, like whatever presents itself physically has been like in the background, and it only manifests later on down the line once your body's like just had enough of buffering, basically. And so with the doctor, it was like I went to the doctor first. I was like, can I get these bloods done? And like, why do you want to get the bloods done? I was like, because I want to make sure that everything is fine in my body. It's like, well, I can't remember, it must have been like 26 or 27 at the time. He's like, you're like 26 years old, you're outwardly healthy, it's fine. I was like, what? He's like, I basically realized that, okay, the NHS ain't going to do it for nothing, basically. They ain't going to do it because I'm interested in finding out. But then instead of that being the answer, I've got somebody just basically saying to me that you don't need to do it, there's no point. And trying to sound smarter than me as well. Yeah. And so I don't mind because, you do have that knowledge and background, but to suggest that it was irrelevant, it basically summed up a bunch of things for me. It was like, one of the things is like somebody who's like wielding knowledge and power and trying to belittle me with it. And I was like, you can fuck off. I'm not down with that. There was somebody who was kind of like that fixed mindset, is like, I know better, and you don't need to do this, and like you like, what's the point in you going down another route? So it is basically that fixed mindset of protecting their own knowledge as well, because instead of just being like, yeah, sure, you can, we can't do that for you, but here's some suggestions. Like, instead of being like, they basically said, hey, you can fill out these forms and you can go do it privately, but it was like, but the way it all went down, right? It was just basically, it was essentially, the biggest thing was like trying to fob me off like I'm some sort of dickhead who is got no idea of like what I'm talking about. And here I'm somebody who knows better. It's like, even if I have no idea what I'm talking about, this is worth exploring, right? It's like, you don't give me that flat answer of you're 26 and outwardly healthy. So that means shit all. It doesn't mean anything. And so one of those things is just, I don't like when people are doing that kind of, they're the authority and therefore they know best and don't want to take on the other person's opinion and like ask the question of like, why you might be thinking that way. Other things that kind of bug me, it's just, I guess, when to make the point on that one as well, is like, I kind of went out of the doctor's office. I was like, I'm never listening to this motherfucker again. I don't care if he's got something useful to say. It was just the way you handled that just gave me a completely awful opinion of how you approach something that's out of your wheelhouse as well. It's like, it's not even something that you're an expert in. So it's like, why would you tell me that there's no point in doing this kind of thing? So it's just a bunch of different things. Like, I just remember just the feeling that I got. I was like, this has told me so much about you that I don't need to know anything else. And Yeah, and it's like, you know, articulate. And interesting is, like, you know, a couple of years later, when I like did get around to actually doing it properly as well, I turned out like I had massive deficiencies in like zinc levels, and and like, you know, bordering on a couple of other vitamins and minerals. So I was like, motherfucker, I could have got this done 2 years ago and figured it out then if that was the case then, rather than, you know, 2 years down the line and then having to, you know, super dose some zinc and shit like that, and then try and build myself back up. So it's just yeah, that's frustrating because, again, your body can always look outwardly healthy, but what's going on underneath is could be suggesting otherwise. And it's a preventative measure than more than is a curative measure. So it's just basically somebody who's just not willing to think outside of what they already know, because the system that they work within is all about fixing problems as opposed to preventing problems. So it's like, all right, fine, you know, that's your fixed mindset that's bothering you. So I guess it's basically just people with that fixed mindset. I think like a story that you mentioned ages ago, which was you're sparring with a dude at Wave, and you just come off the back of like a session with Sylvia, you're practicing some stuff. He was really struggling with it, and he was like, "Oh man," he's like, "No wonder you're so good. You've been having training sessions with this guy," and it was basically implying that, you know, the implication there was that you're only good because you've taken sessions, and I'm like, and there's no point in me sparring with you because you're better than me. And it's like, no, wait, what? That makes no sense. It's like the only way you're going to get better is if you're being challenged, and then you ask that person questions. Like, you know, he could have been that person who said, you know, what you just did was sick. I have no idea how to defend that. Can you show me what's going on, or can you at least, like, you know, talk me through it a little bit? And so, yeah, stuff like that is the kind of thing that bothers me. It just kind of irks me. I think there's definitely other stuff as well. I just can't think of it.
That's a great shout, though, man.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's fixed mindset stuff, and I think partly because I've been there. I'm coming from that place, and I just know how much I like. It just irks me. It's just like because it's kind of sad as well. So it bothers me when it feels like that person is kind of entrenched in that way of thinking. So I'd rather it'd be better if I could have a conversation to kind of, you know, get that mindset out of the way and shift it. But it's just for a lot of people, it's just difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean that's such a what you've just said there is so true, man. That's the key, because like this whole like collective consciousness thing, like we are one organism, and if you come into contact with a cell of this organism, which is like an enemy, clearly an enemy of progress, right? It's like, motherfucker, we're trying to get better here. It's like if I've invested my time and my money to go and learn from somebody who is our instructor, by the way. I don't know if you noticed, he's the guy who takes the entire frigging class. Like I've gone in to ask for more knowledge from him, and then I'm coming to invest my time with you. I ain't here to become world champion of Wave BJJ, am I? It's like this role isn't going to determine who lives and dies and who gets the tribe and who gets the walk to the field, right? It's like we're all just growing here, right? So yeah, I remember it was such a crazy moment. I remember looking at him like, you're the guy who would have gone to look for food in the valley and got eaten by the saber-tooth tiger. Like that's you. Like just straight up, no sense. And it was because I had just finished rolling with him, and then I rolled with somebody else, and he actually said it to the other guy. He was like, "Oh, be careful with him. He's been taking privates." And I was like, what? Like this guy's gonna do word for word what you just did.
Good.
Oh man, I don't even know where to start with that kind of person. But what you said at the end there was bang on, because it's almost like in that doctor's office, you want to just be like, close the computer. We need to talk. Like what you just did there was wrong. Like what you did there was fucked up for so many different things, because you're not helping me. You're definitely not helping yourself. So we need to have a talk right now, because you're not being an effective human being. Like not effective for me. I know when you go home, you're not effective for your family. You know, when you get on the bus, you probably don't say thank you to the bus guy. Like you're being a waste right now. You're being a waste. We need to fix this shit quick, right? Because like it's a place of compassion you're coming from, right? Because it's sad to see. I remember Lennox Lewis being on the podcast, like, actually being on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how like it's mad to think how one man can or woman or whatever can start their life and it can go so badly wrong that they can end up in prison or killing people or just being a horrible person. But then the other person can be heavyweight champion of the world. It's like, what? How are we capable of this duality? But really, what you're trying to say there is that we're willing to like put our lives on pause for a second and actually save the next person's life, because really I can only be so effective. I'm only come into contact with so many people in my life, but this person can. Well, now all of a sudden we've doubled the odds of fixing the world, right? We put a bit of time into this doctor who's in a much more authoritative position than either of us with a white coat on. He can really be so much more effective, but he's choosing to kind of fold to his insecurities. That he's just leaving potential on the table, right?
Yeah. That's it, man. This what you said like earlier is like there's people like all generations in the family who just put so many reps in that it's just it's difficult to see the other side of it. And this person's probably the same sort of thing as well. And it's like, it's just kind of sad. It's also, again, in a way, like like you said, there's that duality. We exist. So in one timeline, I am this guy. Another timeline, I could be a murderer. And it's just like what shaped that decision making along the way for it to go down that path. And we have to be able to recognize that within us, that we're at the whims of our circumstances, we're at the whims of our environment, the people we surround ourselves with, the kind of even like maybe the moment we took in a piece of information as well, like, and how we interpreted that piece of information. Because what I find fascinating, for example, is like say like I put a lot of effort into listening to like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Huberman, right? So these two guys, like from an intellectual point of view, they're also helping in a kind of life point of view as well. Like Huberman, like listing out like the neuroscience behind goal setting, for example, and achieving goals. And so that's basically given me a framework that I never had before towards achievement, basically, is like, and like the relationship I have with achievement. So that's why I put a lot of weight on like learning that kind of stuff. And then there's and with Peterson is basically like a lot of people feel is he's articulating what you already know, but in the best way possible, and like in like this complete package. And it's not just about life stuff as well. He's got it's like I just watch him and I'm watching somebody who's very good at thinking, basically. I'm picking up on things he didn't say, and as much as the things he did say, and like the way he's approaching a topic. So, because again, it's like there's a hole there. There's something that I was missing on some level early on in life. But I also wonder is like if I'd heard these two guys speaking, like say they existed 10 years ago and I was exposed to them, would I have been paying attention? Because 10 years ago was prior to me being really fully aware of like what my capacity could be, what I actually wanted to do with myself. I'm living a life where I'm kind of going the usual track of like zero discomfort in terms of life ambitions, whereas just here's a job, you graduate out of uni, here's a job, you can run this job, it'll be like go do the exams and you'll have a career set for the rest of your life, kind of thing. And within that there's there's the difficulty and the struggle and stuff, but in terms of life for me and like my interpretation of it was like that's not going to be satisfying, that's not going to be fulfilling. But I was in that zone, and I was starting to like at some point I was starting to figure out that I didn't like being in that place. But before I started realizing those things, if I had heard them speaking, I probably might not have even paid attention. I might have just thought, yeah, whatever, it's just a couple of dudes who are just saying some stuff. And so I think timing is an important aspect of it as well. It's just like, you're just reaching a certain point in your life where it just kind of makes sense, because certain people have been saying this kind of stuff all along, and it's got a lot to do with the timing of the message, the way the message is packaged as well. It's like, are they saying it in a way which just kind of resonates with you? And then am I in a place to accept that message as well? It's like, you know, what can I latch onto here?
This is what makes our job so fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is what makes our job so much fun. I mean, I call it a job, but it's just like we're literally just like playing with the world in a mad
Yeah.
way. It's like kind of
Mm.
we get called personal trainers because we operate in a gym. But I suppose if we were in that tax office and we just got put in there tomorrow, yes, we have a task to do, but the conversations we have with people are fundamental, man. They're so
Mhm.
needed. They're so like this forms the cogs that turn the wheel of society, right? It's like
Mm.
this shit is just so needed. And it's just I suppose like what you just said there, the timing in which you hear these things, like someone can be in a very defensive place, have been hurt by somebody, a loved one or whatever, and then be triggered by something, and all of a sudden for life now that thing is now a damned thing. And then this is where, like, as a PT, you've got to unpack the human being in front of you in such
Mm.
an efficient way and such a neutralistic way to basically get the most out of this person, to make them
Mm.
realign on all the little integers in their life where they've kind of, there's a slight spike off to the left here, there's a slight spike off to the right there. But it's using the mindset that none of this stuff is bad. It's just that it's showing you something, like you said earlier. You know what I mean? It's like
Mm.
all of this stuff is productive if we choose it to make it productive.
Yeah.
Yes, it may seem like work right now, but like you said earlier, like you would have seen, you got the exams laid out in front of you and you were like, oh yeah, this is a simple life. This is, I can go and have my 3.5 kids and live on the white picket fences. It's like, but that's not making me effective at anything.
Mm.
It's making me actually just die a slow death. Whereas what you really want is, you want that, not all the time, but you want a path of, this is interesting. This was my, like, I don't know why, but this is a phrase of mine that I used to repeat to myself especially when I was training when I was really young, and it was, I choose the path of most resistance.
Mm.
And it's sometimes that can be misconstrued, and sometimes you can kind of go a bit wayward with it. But you do want the hard beaten road, right? You do want the especially to just teach you how to deal with shit, teach you how to deal with yourself. You got to go through that stuff and then like unpack it. And yeah, it's really interesting, man. It's really, really interesting, especially when you get to do it to yourself first, and then you look at another person. We're all the same. Like, you feel
Mm.
sadness the way I feel sadness. Like, this is a game paraphrasing from the conversation I had with a friend yesterday. It's like the emotion, sadness, happiness. We've all experienced it, but then
Mm.
it's like seeing that somebody is kind of stuck on one emotion and they're not really leaving that emotion, and they just kind of built their house on that emotion. It's like, well,
Mm.
we've got to move. We can't be here the whole time, because now
Yeah.
this is like it's like a disease. It's like you got to get rid of this disease to fully actualize and fully breathe all of life, right?
Mm.
But then, like you said, like, people get so comfortable and they start to make their house on there. They start to have families and kids on there. And then that's how we have a society sometimes, which is a bit fractured, right?
Mm.
But yeah, we get to go around fixing that shit, man. Plugging all them leaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dunking
Exactly.
on them hoops, just be like, yep, we can fix that,
Yeah.
fix that, fix that, fix that. But obviously, the person that gets fixed the most is us, right?
Yeah.
We kind of, I think you might even be born out of that. I mean, you can probably speak on, you will speak on this better yourself. But like, did you feel like did you just feel fucked when you were younger? When you were doing the tax thing, would you just feel like you were just dead already, but you hadn't been buried yet? Like, you were just a
Yeah.
bit like Sylvia actually said that to me. That's Sylvia's shout out.
Yeah.
He said to me once, we were having a conversation once, and he was like, yeah, a lot of the world is already dead, but they're just not buried yet. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, man, that's
That's
so
brutal.
legit. So
That is
legit,
true.
man. So
It's
yeah,
true,
it's
man.
brutal. You're right. Totally brutal. But it is like, take a look, right? I don't see what else it is. It makes so
Mm.
much sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, you got to have the ones that are willing to die and then be like, oh yeah, like we said with that Eckhart Tolle thing. It's like you die and you realize that where you've built your house, it's cool because you can build it anywhere. You just have
Mm.
to realize you got to leave this one first. Like, let's get out of
Yeah.
this place, because this place is a sucky place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
man.
think that's, I love that. It's like most of it is dead. They're just not buried yet. Oh,
Yeah,
that cut deep.
yeah, man.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
Too right,
It's,
man.
and yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's like that's a good person for it to be coming from, because he's just a dude he's just living by the only thing he wants to do and
Yeah,
knows how to do. And and continues to, employ the growth mindset to keep learning and keep growing within that as well.
Yeah.
And it's epic. So it's a good source for it to be coming from as well. With me, it's like, so here's the thing as well, is like when so people who know the story about like me leaving tax basically to start becoming a personal trainer, it's the short version of it. It's like I never actually hated it. And so the thing is, it was like it ticked certain boxes in the sense that so here's another thing, right? It's like if you're doing a tick box exercise, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. You're trying to make it fit at an intellectual level, but what's it doing for you on the inside? So like in terms of ticking, yeah, that's it, man. It's like in terms of ticking the boxes, it was like, okay, I got a good feeling after I finished that interview, and then I got off, and even to the point where I remember actually I said the recruiter called me after I finished the interview, and I had to go. I was like, you know what, I feel like I could have done a little bit better. There was certain things about it. It was like I did well, like I feel like I present myself well, but there's certain things I could have done better. And she was like, well, you know what, they want you back. I was like, all right, oh, fucking great, that's cool. And then basically vibed well, got the job. So basically I was working in a good team of people, like, it was a small team, but like they were good people. And I had a good manager director who was like really good at figuring out how to make me excel in the job. And so like the career path is there, all those different kinds of things, but that just wasn't sitting with me, right? So it's like, okay, I work with good people, I've got a good manager, I've got a career path set out around me. Like, the work is intellectually stimulating because it is problem solving. It's like, it sounds ridiculous, but like, you look at fucking tax legislation, you see a sentence is a goddamn a page long paragraph. Like, you're clearly just like, yeah,
get out of here.
Exactly.
Get out of here.
That would basically be all of the tax legislation. Just like, get out of here. And so you got to read between the lines. You got to figure out where the bullshit is and where it isn't, and then you got to take it in from the subsidiary that you're dealing with, and be like, okay, you've given me this information. Here's what the legislation says. I got to make it fit that, basically. And then I'm going through a training. So there's it's problem solving, there's intellectual stimulation there as well, and stuff like that. So it kind of like ticks those boxes. But I was like, yeah, but there's something about it just doesn't sit well with me. It's like I just can't do this. And it's the lifestyle as well. It's like if you're looking at the clock and just waiting for lunchtime every single day so you can go train or go outside and then come back again, it's just like, it's just not speaking out to you. So when I started figuring that out, because I'd done that enough times, it was like, oh shit, yeah, something's not right. So for me, it was like, it wasn't like I was hating it. It wasn't like my existence was a bane on me, but what I started to figure out was, this just can't be my life, because it would end up feeling like I am dead, just not buried yet. Because it was, it's like, again, it's doing enough repetitions in that kind of in that existence, where at the beginning it doesn't feel like that, but you encroach on that a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. It's kind of like how how it's like how Jordan Peterson is described as, like, if you were alive in Nazi Germany, you would have been a Nazi. It's like, you think you're a reasonable person, but you would have become a Nazi. And it's not like it was from here's a moment where you're a normal person, and then the next moment you're a Nazi. It's not how that works. It's that slow encroachment. And you see it happen like in everyday life as well. It's like, you're like, for example, people who have been in abusive relationships talk about how it was, you can't really pick a moment when it started to become abusive. It just eventually, the boundary just got wider and wider and wider in terms of the abusive behavior, and it just kind of set in, and you're like, oh wait, I didn't know I was within this boundary of abuse. I thought I was outside of that, and it just turns out I'm inside it, because it just gradually widens without you really noticing and paying attention. So it's the same thing with that kind of life. And so I knew that if I, like, being like, when I got into it, being 22, and also when you're young, you kind of have in my opinion, I feel like you have a bit more tolerance for that kind of bullshit, because you feel like you're young, you can do anything. You'll feel like I'm willing to make any sacrifice to do what I want to do. But then again, I was like, I don't really know what I'm sacrificing, because I don't really know what I want. All I knew was it just didn't feel good. So you do enough repetitions in that, and eventually, just like in other areas, it just encroaches on you, and you start to feel like you're living a life which is just existing as opposed to thriving. And because I don't buy it as well as like everybody, like so there's people who are actually they're willing and happy to make the trade-off. I know people like that, and it's like, that's cool, because you're well aware of your decision. But there's loads of people who aren't, and so I don't buy it like that anybody who is in that place is like, yeah, I'm doing great, I work 48 weeks a year and I take 4 weeks off, and that's enough for me to feel like I'm living a good life. And I'm kind of just like, if you're living for the vacation and stuff like that, it's just I don't know, man. It just doesn't. I don't think that resonates. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't think most people buy their own story, but it's also is like not taking the time to figure out what could be the better version for themselves. And because again, it's just harder. It's harder to do that, and it's easier to take that path. So for me, it definitely would have felt like by the time I would have got to 30, it'd just be like. Because I ended up meeting some of my peers from university at that time, around about that 30 age mark, and one of them said to me, like kind of mid-sentence, it was like, "Man, you look really happy." I was like, "What?" I was kind of taken aback by that statement. And he was like, "Yeah, you're just kind of like you're doing what you want. You're dealing with people like you're living this life." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." It's like like no way am I the finished article in any of the like value systems that I hold, but cool, yeah, for sure. Like I'm doing well in that front for sure. Like I'm just kind of stubborn about doing what I want to do. And then another friend was like teetering on, like you asked the question, it's like how you doing, how's everything going, and it's like just wouldn't really want to talk about that to a deeper level, because if you did, you'd start to make them realize that their life is everything it's not, they don't want it to be. So I was like, okay, cool. And so that would have been me, and I just wouldn't have, there's no way I could like live with that, basically.
Love it.
Yeah, because you're coming from a place of just like, I've just always done what I wanted to do. Would that be accurate?
Yes and no. Yes, from the perspective that I think you mean it. Yes, from the perspective of I've always been a personal trainer, but I think what this is really interesting, because pre me being a personal trainer, I almost, but through that mantra of what did I say earlier? The path of most resistance. Being in that space, I was almost a bit trapped, right? I was almost a bit trapped in the sense that I was training to be this like behemoth of just train and lift weights, and then it started to kind of become a prison almost, right? It started to become like I had to keep up appearances. I had to go to the gym again and put 7 plates aside and move it like it was nothing, and like it ends up killing you unfulfilled. And that's the truth of it. Like, and then you have to deal with that shit quite young, and it's weird because like gym, like you'll know what this is like. Everyone will know what this is like, right? Like a gym guy will know what this is like, right? Well, I'm sure girls too. But like seeing somebody and then being like, "Oh, you look a bit small today," and they're like, "My heart, like, it hurts so much," right?
Who the hell says that?
but like it's just a thing, right? So like when your entire life is based on one thing, then you get feedback and it's like you're failing that one thing. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like this is all I have. This is all I have, right? So like you can go all in and blow the doors off and be like, where's the horse hormones, and like go all the way in, but it's not that going further into this deep rabbit hole is not going to get you back to the surface. Like you got to start like thinking of ways of getting out of this hole. And that's kind of where I found myself, I think. And almost like that accident happening, and I'll talk about the car crash a few times, like that happening, and then me trying to go visit the well again and being like, okay, I need to carry on going on this kind of trek. It just didn't. It started feeling wrong, and it's very interesting. This is, I think, why we vibe so hard, because that sentinel moment is present in both our lives in different ways. Like, you found it in a tax office, and I found it almost in a gym, where it was like, I can do this, but I don't dislike this, but I know there's more to it than just this. I think it's so necessary for people to find that out early on, and this is why the resistance comes in later on, because then you're a bit more afraid, a bit more resistant to change, and yeah, like you said, you see it in people, and you see it. I've had a few other jobs. I've worked in Holland and Barrett. I've worked in a clothes shop. I worked in Giacomo clothes shop. Can you imagine me working in a clothes shop?
Okay.
Can you imagine me working in a clothes shop? Like, yeah, buy this.
Yeah,
What?
take it.
like I friggin' know what I'm talking about. We can buy. I'm wearing the same black jeans I wore Monday, and it's friggin'
Yeah.
Thursday, and I'm wearing the same jumper because I'm just like, I have to be clothed when I go out to society. But like, I give no shits about anything that you buy or to buy. Just let me
Yeah.
finish my hours and go home, because I have a bit of a wage.
Yeah.
Because that just don't, like, on the level where I was at in my life then, that shit just didn't matter, right? So, but yeah, I think being trapped in that sense, feeling that kind of anxiety of being stuck in this prison that I almost created for myself by being too singular, makes you branch out, and makes you created the need for you to pivot and go off in a different direction. And that's difficult, because especially when you have like a very strong cultural grip and very strong family bond, and that requires you to fit into that, like you always have, like one of those additions. And then you start being the outlier. It's like, oh shit, well, I want to be over here. It's like you see it in other families. You see kind of like black sheeps and all this kind of stuff, and it's difficult to be that, right? It's difficult to be that, but I think you need to save your own life. You do need to be that, and then you can almost return back to those people. And I find myself doing this now. It's mad. Find myself kind of returning back to some of the people in my family and being more effective for them, for the choices that I've made now. And I know other people who have the similar story of kind of stepping out on their own lives, breaking their own mold, and then coming back to help other people break their own molds. And I think that's what we do as personal trainers, is that
Yeah,
we
man.
get stuck in a way, and we know it's wrong. Like, we know the resonance, it speaks for itself, right? The vibe is real, right? And like you said, it, like, it's not all wrong, but there's some things that earning money on a Tuesday just won't fix. Like, you need to step back, and you need to really look at this, because it's otherwise you're just going to keep spiraling, looking in the wrong places for this fulfillment, and it just won't come. But the best part about all this is that as soon as you start making the right choice and you start feeling that uncomfortability, you learn straight away. And it's about that. It's about seeing it as a lesson, as opposed to seeing it as failure, or seeing it as time spent away from the thing that you think that you want most, but that's really giving you no fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's about kind of being brave in that moment, right? So yeah, it's a cool journey, man. It's a cool journey, and I bet there's people out there with their own versions of this.
Yeah, man. Is it's like seeing the lessons. There was a bunch of stuff you said there, man. It's like I'm doing the whole thing as well. It's like, where do I begin? It's like, just begin
Yeah,
where
it'll come in, man. It'll come in for sure.
exactly. But yeah, working in that's brilliant, man. Working in Jackal, was that pre PT days, or like
No, it was the same time. It was the same time. So
okay.
I didn't quite actually finish. I'm gonna jump back in now. So yeah, working at Giacomo, working at Holland and Barrett, and then also getting a job at the gym as well. And it was just to be, and just to be. The reason why that happened was because I felt so ineffective at other parts of my life. I have to, like, almost, like you said, hyperdose on a deficiency, and you end up kind of hyperdosing on a perceived deficiency, but the deficiency is somewhere else. But you end up just kind of working hard, not working smart, right? And
Yeah.
that's where I kind of found myself, was that I'm the guy who can wake you. Want me to wake up at 3 a.m? I'll do it. You want me to walk to work? I'll do it. Like, you want me to be there for 17 hours a day? I can do it. Like, I can redline that way, and I can get good at doing that. But really, that doesn't solve the issue. Like, it led that which then that led me to kind of going off to London, finding that also wasn't the answer. And then it led me to come back home and be like, okay, now I think I have a bit more of a basis in my own comfort, like my own direction. Put it that way. Not the word comfort's the wrong word to use there. My own direction. And now it's a case of I've become aware. I've aligned with the things I want to align with. I've kind of found my path, and now it's time to act on it. And obviously we know like that's going to manifest itself in the project that we're working on right now. But it's go time. Like TJ said it a few times last week. Now it's time to just put the rubber to the road and just hit it hard until the wheels fall off, right? Because there's nothing else to do now, man. But yeah, like you said, you said, like, I think the question you initially asked was like, was that something that you felt or you went through because you've always been a PT? I definitely have always been a PT at heart, but I haven't always been acting as a PT at heart, if that makes sense. And it's the process of finding myself as an effective person that I had to go through that as well. Everyone has to, I think. Everyone has to just to get rid of the old shit and realign with the new stuff.
Yeah, cool. And like, just to be clear on it as well, with the hyperdosing on the deficiencies, like, what exactly was that you feel you're trying to gain?
Glad you asked that, man, because I couldn't be around people. I was shit at it.
Right.
I was super shit at being around people. Like, I'm telling you, G, I swear, I would sit and be on my own and be happy as Larry on my own. Like, genuinely, I couldn't. I'd be cool not seeing another person for days on end, and in times just look for that isolation and be cool with it, because I knew that there was nobody else around who wanted to train at this time, or nobody around who wanted to do what I wanted to do at this time. So it's cool. I got those reps solidly on my own, which I'm thankful for, because it leads me to a place now where I'm cool by myself, right? Like, I know what I'm going to be up to. I'm happy. But I knew that I had no basis in the reality of being with or next to or in a team with or anything like that with another person. Like, I had done it. Obviously I had friends through school or whatever, but they was not deep. They weren't deep. They were just shallow reps. They were just like showing up at a Sunday Zumba class. Like, I wasn't actually sweating for that shit, right? I wasn't going silver you deep with that shit, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's levels to this game.
You were going Zumba deep.
I was going
Zumba deep, not as wrestling deep. Oh man, that's a quotable right there. That's how I'm gonna pick shit now as well. It's like, if I'm doing something, I'm like, am I going Zumba on this or am I going wrestling on this? Oh.
That's brilliant. Just play with your mini barbell on the corner, just like, this is great. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not doing great. It's like, any piece of work as well is like, stop fucking Zumbaing it and start wrestling that shit.
Exactly. It's like when your mom kind of tells you, "You're gonna learn this or what? You're gonna like just gotta get on with this shit. Like, you play or you flirting on the edge for. Just jump in the pool, man. Yeah. So it was just that. It was that I had no ability to be with or in the vicinity of another person and converse like we're doing right now, and hold eye contact and be comfortable and be able to organize my thoughts. It's mad that I got to that level of my life, like 20 something years old, and just had, bro, it was bad. It was really bad. Like,
I've got this image of you. I've got this image of you now. Just like, you read somewhere. It's like, this is how to be social and make eye contact. So the next thing you're doing is the next person you see, you're like,
do you know what?
just, yeah, you seeing me? You see?
The first book. The first book. This is a great story, right? Whereas I should go get this book. I will find it in a second. I have to. I swear, it's called. It's called 20 odd ways or 70 odd ways to make conversation.
Yeah.
And if that is not a cry for help, I don't know what the fuck is, right? Because that was legit one of the first books I bought myself. I was like, you need to read this. Like, I'd like to purchase one of these, please. Because I need help.
Respect for you, though. Again, like, you see your deficiency, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go sort this out.
But man, that was the genesis of all of it, right? Like, without that, I can't have the conversations with you. I can't have the conversations with clients. I can't form a business. I can't become recognized in the industry. I can't, like, sit in an interview. I can't talk to other people. I can't form relationships. I can't progress. Like we
Yeah.
need, the world is like the net. It's not like we have like zebras running the world. We have humans running the world. So like learn how humans work. Like right now, I just had no reps in this game, so I just started getting reps in this game, man. It's clearly been the right reps.
That's sick, man. What do you like? Is there something off the top of your head that you recall from that book, which is like how to start a conversation? Is there a conversation starter that you can remember? Or like
Oh, it was one of them always sticks out because this is in every book, right? Even if you listen
right.
to like, so a great book on this, people, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie, great book, like brilliant book.
Right.
Recommended to me by Dan Miles, Savage.
Savage.
One of the things from that book, I swear it was like 70 odd things. It was a lot of things. It was a lot of like, with you, this book is like, I just looked at the numbers. Oh, that's a high number. I'm about to get some,
I
I'm
knew all
down to
those.
get some of those. I was gonna top that deficiency right up, like all 70. One of them was like the basic thing of if somebody's got, it was have a conversation piece on you. So it was like, that's just the dumbest thing to have as well. It's like kind of like imagine like walking into the office and like Janice is like pierced her earring and she's got like a feather in her ear now. It's like, oh, she wants you to ask about the feather so you can have a chat about the feather, and like, you know what I mean? Like it's that ridiculous thing where it's like, you're so shit at this. You had to come with a loaded gun. You had to come with a loaded gun, and all I can do is pull that trigger. And oh shit! But that you need those reps sometimes. You need those reps that are just like like I said, the low hanging fruit, right? Like that gets you to be motivated to climb the tree and further go along. But I mean, that's what I can remember, man. Yeah.
That's great, man. I'll be honest, right? It's like, it sounds hilarious. You're like, I'm so shit at having conversations. I need a book about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's still value in it as well, because
Fuck yeah,
it's
man.
basically that's teaching observation. That's not teaching how to have a conversation. That's teaching observation. It's like, if you see this on someone, go make a comment about it, and then you'll end up having a conversation. Right? It's like there's something bigger than just it being about how you speak to someone.
Yeah, man. It's like, have you seen the movie Hancock?
Yes, Will Smith.
Will Smith, yeah. Right. So now he's a proper loner, right? He has all these powers, but he's like just gives no shits, right? And he does it his own way. And then at one point, the guy who's coaching him is like, "You got to give a compliment once in a while." And this is TJ and I have talked about this. Like, I did not know how to give compliments. I did not know how to like. And he's like learning it in the movie. He's like, good job, like good job. He says it to everybody, right? Yeah. And he has so robotic when he says it, but it has to be that level, like taking somebody for their age or their like maturity by their how they look or like whatever is incorrect. Like, you need to basically properly understand the person. I was 100% a product of that fit that mold, because someone would look at me and be like, oh, okay, yeah, you have your shit together. But like, I defo didn't have my shit together. Like, I don't know what you're looking at, but I can tell you you're wrong. You are proper wrong. And
it's hilarious. If you ever put together like an image of what that person sees and your own self-image next to each other, they would look like two different people. You'd be like, I don't know what you're seeing here.
Yeah, you see that though, don't you? You see like the outwardly confident. Like, I've seen it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Like, there's a girl looking in the mirror. She's got a hand on her hip and she's like wearing some nice dress or whatever, and the world sees like a confident girl who's like has curves or has whatever, and then inside she's just like, oh, I hate myself. Like, I obviously it wasn't that way inclined, but there's those roots are different for different people, right? So that the sentiment is the same. But then, like, coming into PT, I remember one of my first clients, like she like, if I was trying to tap the shell of my human and be like, oh, let me just break these little parts off, she just come across and just like push that shit off the stairs, was like, break, because she challenged me on so many different levels. She was so quick-witted and so like fiery, and she still is to this day. Like, Ash, big shout out to Ash. She helped me form as a person, literally. Like, this is why there's a monetary transaction going on here, but almost like that shit don't mean nothing, man. Like and it's just so what I'm getting in return is more valuable than the money, you know what I mean? And hopefully like the trading and then the experience and the knowledge is on par. But I mean, the people you get to meet with this kind of profession, I'd recommend it to anybody. Like, you know, jump in the pool, this is the pool to jump in. Because it's just like one day you've got Ash showing up, then the next day you got Johannes the vicar showing up, and the next thing you've got like Felix showing up age 11. It's like how many ways can you pivot and like be? But yeah, man, I've been the product of, well, the greatest success I think has been like on my progression as a human being because of these people. So yeah, man, massively thankful.
Exactly, man. I feel you as well. It's like, I'm super grateful for my clients, man. Super grateful for clients that I've had in the past as well, because each and every one of them just shaped you as a human being. You know how like TJ said last week, is like I learn a thing on Monday and I apply it on Tuesday, and that would happen. That happens all the time. Is same thing, and they're giving me the place and the space to apply, which it's not just like an application of knowledge, it's an application of a way of being, because ultimately what we do is help people improve their lives, right? And so that helps us improve our life as well, because there's nothing like working with people and seeing the progression and how that reflects on yourself, because every session to learn something new you just, again, it's that mindset as well. It's like you have to be open to the idea that you're going to learn something from your clients as much as you're going to impart on them. And you really do, because you can never go into it being like, okay, I'm the expert in terms of helping you get where you want, but you're going to make me a better expert because you're going to challenge me in a way where it's going to make me think about something, and I'm going to have to really think about the response to you. It's going to challenge me in a certain kind of way where it feels like I might have seen it all before, but I've got to approach it from a different angle, and just keeping you open and keeping you.
So we said there about the other angle. Is like the analogy you gave at the start with the dot and the circles, you're looking in one direction to catch one semicircle or one fragment of that thing. Now you have a different perspective, a different angle, right? So you can see more of the picture, and I think that's a great way of thinking about it, man.
Yeah, I think that's what clients do, and a lot of it is like, it's not even in the training sessions. It's not even in the training. It's not even in the nutrition advice or all that kind of stuff. It's just what they talk about, like what they're able to bring, and I just learn a lot about like for example, one of the things that really stands out to me. It's a small thing, but it's just something that's come to. It's easy because it's in the front of my mind. Is a client ages ago was just telling me like when him and his wife had their first child, and the difference between having their first and having the second. So this is all stuff like I don't have any kids, but it's really helpful to know for the time when I probably do have kids, and so it hits home in a certain kind of way. And I just learned something. I've picked up a completely different perspective in a field I have, like, I don't have any basis of reality. And what you say there, I've adopted that now as well. As I have zero basis in that reality. Like, I don't know what the hell it takes. Is like, I know, for example, like, what a healthy child development looks like, but in terms of raising a kid and what that would be like, I don't know. And so there's an education process that's going on there. And one of the things he said was basically, when we had the first one, it's kind of manageable. Yeah, sure, you get sleepless nights and things like that, but one of us can be awake taking care of the kid, and then that one can go to sleep, and then I'm on duty taking care of the kid, and we can keep flipping between the two. Then he said the same thing is when the second one came along, so we've got 2 kids now, but we might as well have 10. It just makes things that much harder. And I was like, whoa. He goes, yeah, because you got 2 kids. It's not like one of you is going to be able to handle both of them crying at the same time, and one of you is going to be able to handle both of them, like needing to put them to bed and soothe them and everything. It's like both of you need to do that. So you're both spent at the same time all the time. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, yeah, okay, that's a good thing. I'm like, clearly I've made a mental note of that, because that's the first thing that came to my mind in terms of what I learned from my clients. But I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, mental noted. That's it's going to be fucking crazy. Just get good at having a kid and then see about having a second one. And so just things like that. And so you just learn so much from their life experience. And that's, I think that's a big reason why is why I do what I do. I think I've just a lot of curiosity about life and our existence and stuff like that. And the more people you meet, the more you expand your footing in different people's realities, and therefore shaping your own perspective, and hopefully trying to be able to see other people's perspective, even if you don't live it, even if you don't agree with it. You're just able to see that there is another perspective out there.
It's really interesting, like what you said there. Like I remember being really subscribed to like stoicism, and like being quite like how they describe themselves to be separate of the noise of the world. It's like I like that. I still to this day like I subscribe to that, in the sense that when it serves you to be completely void of the noise, I think it helps with lots of things, right? And it's a cool philosophy. It's a cool philosophy to read, and I like the virtues that come along with it, and obviously like the moral characters and all those kind of things. But then it kind of comes undone when you have to stop and think about other people in their chaotic, like really difficult lives. It's like I can't come across on my moral high horse and be like, I've looked after myself in by separating my mind when my life isn't like this. It's like I don't need to live your life, but I need to have empathy, and I need to understand that your life is entirely your own. And me not understanding that should almost dictate the judgment. It should definitely dictate the judgment. It should definitely dictate just the way in which I receive you and the way in which I act around you. Because really you just don't know. You just don't know, right? And I think imposing your own viewpoint, especially one so strong, it's going to lead to just disconnect. I think that's where you just need to almost like leave your bags at the door and be like, okay, just teach me what you got, because I don't know. It's really interesting. Like I think I did that this morning with a client of mine, another Ash, but Shika this time, and we talked about kind of some of the things that she wanted to talk about, and it just really enlightened to me the differences that people have in their lives. And again, like it just points back to why I love this job so much, is because it makes you like, it exposes you to so many different things. And it's a word that TJ definitely loves, is that like being exposed to just different human beings in different walks of life, and that have different experiences. It makes us, like you used the word various and variability, and I know Jordan Shadows uses that in the terms of talking about joints. Is like they have to be variability, and then you have to build the capacity at those different various points. You have to kind of do the reps, and then you can be powerful from those positions, right? Like that's what you were talking about in terms of having experiences, first being exposed to people with different lives. Cool, you've been exposed. Now spend time with them, fully unpack those positions, those people, and spend time in those joint positions, right? Like kind of get those reps. And then it's a case of, I think I now actually have some understanding here. I have some sure footing here. Like if I say this, am I speaking out of turn? No, okay, cool. Well, great. I now understand that I can operate from this place with this person. And then you've kind of become powerful, right? The way he uses it is like variability, capacity, and power. It's like you've now grasped the power of change as a tool of yours, right? So yeah, man. It's really interesting, really fun.
Yeah, entirely. It's with somebody else challenge, like just bringing it to you from a different angle. Is again, you said something. I was like, oh man, that's a good one to evolve onto. But yeah, people. That's why people are important, and that's what TJ kind of like. He said it several times last week, which was surrounding yourself. He looks at you, and you just come along. And you're like, yo, bro, level up. That's basically what he's hearing when you have a certain kind of conversation, and yeah, that's why it's important to have people just around you, whether it's clients or whether it's folks who you're close to already, or like whether it's training partners, whoever it is like the challenge to show you what is from a different point of view, and then also showing you like what could be. So if somebody catches you in a head and arm choke, you're like, all right, that I'm going to try and defend that better next time, and this is how I've got to learn how to defend that. And then so you put a rep in that, and then you get better at that, and then next time it becomes harder for that person to catch you in the head and arm choke. They might not even catch you at all. It's okay, great. Now they've got to rely on a different technique, and it just keeps going from there. And people are the power. People are the power there.
I think like this is the longest we've ever stayed on the topic, hey? This is the longest we've ever just kind of like kept stringing and kept like, connecting the dots, right? I chose the name well. Bam.
Yeah, it's prophecy. Connect the dots.
Yeah, man. I think. Oh no, I've lost my train of thought. Great. Start patting myself on the back a bit too soon there.
That's right, man. We'll be able to connect the dots again later on.
Yeah, buddy. Nah, it's cool. We can,
yeah. I think on the name as well, connect the dots. I think I mentioned it a little while ago as well, but I like that line. There's a certain group of people who live in South America, but I think the Romans kind of thought about it the same way as well, which was you walk through your life backwards because you can't see what's coming in front of you, but you can always see what's behind you. Mm-hmm. And so then you can connect the dots and kind of make a better path forward that way. That's Remember
what I was going to say.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, you helped me. Thanks, man. I think in advice to somebody who's maybe listening to this, I don't know if this is the best advice, but I think looking back, like you just said, connecting the dots. For my situation, if I was to see the way I was and see the deficiencies as more a serious thing, I think it would have helped me out more. As opposed to kind of just being okay with being in that rigmarole and being okay with it. Like it wasn't okay. I mean, it's like a time spent, like I said a lot in this podcast, time spent being largely ineffective and largely like redundant. Like a lot of the things were done out of anger. A lot of things were done out of pure hard-headedness. In some ways, that's a good thing because I know that's made me very deep in that world now. Like if I have to do something, I'll do it. Like it needs to get done. But where I can kind of save myself, I should have. So I think somebody else out there who's kind of going through something where it's not right. I think start seeing that as the focal point of where to spend your efforts. And like we can use training, or I can almost use training to break this down in the sense that what we talked about last week on the course with Jordan is like if you continue deadlifting, but you have an issue with the deadlift, for instance, you can't maintain your core brace, right? So it's like, well, work on that. So put the barbell down, let's fix that. And then when we go back to deadlift, we should be able to integrate that newfound strength into this compartment in your life. So it's a case of like where you can. It's not always easy. It's not as easy as like stop deadlifting. Someone's life, like could be like, oh, your kids, or it could be your family, it could be whatever. It's a tough thing. But where you can get 10 minutes, I think I'll start aligning yourself with somebody who you think deals with that kind of situation better than you do, and then emulate it and like see where it can fit into your life, and go and buy that book. That 72 ways to talk to somebody, right? And just action on one of them. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. It's just like start moving forward somewhere, and then the right people will definitely find their way into your life for sure.
I think well, again, like going back to like the value that the book like that actually has, there was another thing that I came across, like somebody had like created like cards, basically, like Cards Against Humanity, but instead of something outlandish and outrageous written on it, it was just basically a question of, a deeper question, so that you can actually start to get to know people. Like instead of the small talk, I think it was called Big Talk. That was it. I think those cards were called Big Talk, because you got small talk, which is, it's fine. It serves a purpose and it has a function, but to actually, if you want to actually get to know people, then you want to be like, actually, what's actually going on with you? Let's talk about the real stuff. And that's the kind of stuff, clearly as a result of, like, we're doing this right now. We're kind of having that conversation. We're asking us questions. We're willing to go deep and answer honestly about anything that kind of comes up. But a lot of people struggle with that, is because you just don't do it. And also is, in a way, is like, kind of afraid to find out stuff about each other, and find out stuff about yourself, because or rather you just feel like there's something about you that you don't really want to talk about, but actually where your vulnerability is where your power is as well, because the more you accept that position of vulnerability, you just realize actually from that a lot of strength arises. And so this is basically just a set of cards where you just flip one over, and I'll say, I have a question. Excuse me, I'll have a question on there, and it's it's deeper than what did you have for breakfast? Where did you do your shopping this week? It's like it's getting to know people, and I feel like that's an important thing to do, because you just reveal things about life, not just about people, but about certain truths about life by doing that. You get a lot out of it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Dan, my flatmate, I mentioned him earlier, Dan Miles. He used to talk about like the questions that you ask yourself when you're alone. Those are the ones that are kind of like, they're the ones that will shape you. You know what I mean? Because like you said earlier, I think you said that if you don't stray and change off your path to doing the good reps, you end that need and that want starts to become smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you end up like not having the ability to exact on those things, which I think a lot of people find themselves in, and obviously we did in some ways before as well. But if you're able to kind of like take stock of your day at the end of your day and almost like question yourself along the morals and the ideals that you hold dear, that are gonna put you in a good stead for not just where you are now, but one day you'll have a kid and he'll look at you like, why didn't you fix this shit? Like, you have these things now. It's like you don't want to have that family or that institution and then be bleeding on them as well, right? It's like I don't want to have this wound that I've been carrying around for like years and years and years. I want to fix this shit, make sure I heal myself before I kind of start affecting you, giving you this burden as well. So yeah, I think it's ask those questions frequently and often, and if you don't find the answer you want, good, because that means that you're not happy with the answer. That's a good thing. The fact that you're not happy with the answer is a good thing, because it's going to spur you on to go and find the right answer, and that's going to make you more in accordance with who you want to be, and then that who you want to be will go out into the world and find more things that you're shit at, and then you're going to just be like, okay, well, I got to fix this too, and it's back to that, like the stoicism thing I was talking about earlier. One of the things that I loved that I took from there was Dan got me this coin. It's on my Instagram page. Like it's called the Obstacle is the Way medallion. Basically, it just says obstacle is the way, and it came with this card. And on the card, it says this quote, which is like, behind the mountains there are just more mountains. Basically, meaning like you won't, like Peterson talks about this, like you won't get to a stage in life where like all your life is just sitting on a beach with just sipping drinks and like kind of getting a suntan. Like, that doesn't exist. Like there is always problems. Even on the beach, there'll be a day where it's too hot. It's like there'll be like, oh, I'm overweight, I'm unfit. Like all these things, these problems will always be there. You just get good at just solving your own problems right now from day one, and you become more effective, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of asking yourself those questions, it's if you don't already, so it goes back to knowing what constitutes a good day for yourself, and knowing what it is that you're actually, knowing what your values are, and so what you're actually trying to live by each and every day, so that you can ask the good questions of yourself. But there's a lot of that which doesn't exist. There's a lot of there's a lot of people, if you wanted to, if you ask them, it's like, what are your values? I don't think they'll be able to give it to you. I think they'll kind of like hodgepodge around a little bit, and then you start to realize, okay, you don't really have an answer for that. Fine. If you actually go figure out the answer to that, then you'll be able to ask yourself some really, really important questions. So I think that's a good place to start, because it's very easy to be just swept along with life, because like every day goes by super quick, and it's like, yeah, it's mad. Basically on Friday it's going to be August, right? It's fucking crazy. August
makes no sense.
This makes no sense. It's insane how quickly shit can go by because of how because I don't know, it's just life, it's just time flies by, it goes by super quick, and blink of an eye it's over. And so again, it's easy to get swept up. So if we don't have the ability to ask ourselves those good questions, then we're not really we're just kind of floating on. We don't really know what we're doing. We're not living purposefully, and we're not getting the most out of stuff. So if we really ask ourselves the questions like, why are we doing a certain thing, or what kind of values, like first of all, lay out the values that you have, and then ask yourselves the questions in line with those values. You start to really set up the days that you kind of want to have, and then you start to excel a bit more as a human being. Not a bit more, actually, quite a lot more, because you start to figure out what's good for you, what's not good for you. And the interesting thing about it is, especially I've learned through my own experience with this, is that the more you do that, life does become more interesting and more profound, but it also becomes more difficult, because you start to realize is like, if I want to live by the day that I've set myself, then by definition, that also means that there's a kind of day that I don't want to have. And if I'm falling into that category, it's a lot more obvious and it's a lot more disappointing. But again, because none of us are perfect, it's about putting the reps in. We can shift our ability to have good days more often, but it doesn't mean that's always going to happen. There's always so the ability. So it just means that's why it's harder for me, like personally, is because now I know what a good day is not looking like. It just means that the emotions that I experience end up being felt more in the extreme, in that sense. They're information. That's how I look at them as well. I look at them as information, as opposed to that's defining me. Like, I'm not being defined by that feeling of disappointment. I'm looking at it as, oh, that's information that I didn't have the fucking day that I wanted to have. So tomorrow I'm going to set it up so that I have a better version of the day that I want to have. And that takes reflection. That's basically asking yourself the kind of questions that you're talking about there. And you want to ask yourself those kinds of questions at the end of the day. Is like, did I move forward today? Like, I do this with clients as well. I get them to essentially do like a reflections journal. I'm like, people, if you've tried to get to a place of physical health and fitness and stature where you're happy, where you feel fulfilled, you feel good about yourself. When you've tried, like a lot of people have tried that journey and they fail. I don't know what their stat is based on, but I like in terms of, how many people was this done on, what kind of people was it done on? But it basically said that like only 8% of people succeed in the goals that they strive for. That's not a high number of people, but immediately there's some of the things that come to mind are like, for me, are like the attachment that somebody has with the goal that they have. So, and to create that attachment, like, is basically creating meaning and seeing yourself with that goal and what life looks like, and then seeing yourself without that goal and what life looks like in that sense. So you're creating that dichotomy and realizing, in those words of Peterson again, is like, you've got your hell and you know where you want to stay away from, and then you got your heaven that you want to chase and trying to get to, and using both, because to your nervous system, it doesn't really matter whether you are coming from a place of self-punishment or a self-reward to achieve something, but to your quality of life, I feel it does matter. And like, you want to be pushing from both. You want to be pushing yourself away from one and pulling yourself towards the other. But you don't want it to be just like a negative thing. You don't want to be just a positive thing, because you got to be able to see, like, it can't just be hopeful and it can't just be dramatically awful, because one's too fearful and the other one's too like fine and dandy kind of thing, and like, not everything's like that. So it's kind of incorporating the two, but moving, especially if you're in that kind of self-flagellation, like to achieve something, I feel like it's more important for you to get that balance and move towards self-reward, so that you actually appreciate the journey and you're actually more likely to do it more often, because with self-flagellation, it's just you get so far, you just burn yourself out with that. So with with the experience of like doing all that kind of stuff, so I give it to clients to do as well, because a lot of them don't have that ability to stick to a goal, and even if they do get there, the ability to maintain, because of the initial meaning, the initial attachment, the feeling, the thought process around maintaining. And it's not because, and we talk about it as well, it's not just about being on the program that's going to get you where you want to go. And then just like blindly following it. It's making it a part of you, so that you know what you can do in the future for the rest of your life, kind of thing. And I think that's an important part of it, is to be able to introduce that practice where you're able to reflect and ask yourself the right questions, so that you can keep yourself on track, on the right track each and every day, even in the smallest way possible. Because I think that's more important to instill than just the habit of going to the gym 3-4 times a week.
Steam train, G. That was a steam train, man. That was really good. Just rolled on out of the station. Just can't stop me now. Really
Can't stop me, bro.
Really good.
Try and catch me
Really
down.
good, man. Nah, solid, man. Solid work. Solid advice. Solid experience, man. Yeah. There's yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And that's another thing. Is like you said, it's you. I can't quite remember what you said, but I think you did say this. You said it's more an enjoyable life on the other side of this, as opposed to where we were before. It's not fun. Like, you just feel stuck. You feel totally kind of locked in, and that's not a way to live, right? I mean, it's life is much more interesting from here, because then you can always choose, right? And this thing that people kind of forget is that if you have a life which is a certain way, and you don't quite want to leave it because you do like aspects of it, well, if you were brave enough to step out of it in some ways, you can always choose to go back if you don't like it. So I mean, it's a bit of a safeguard there, is like kind of dip your toe in the pool without getting entirely wet. Yeah.
That's it. Exactly. You just have to see where it could potentially take you, and just like stay with that. One thing it made me think of is like, me and Sam were talking about it while I was home last week, and talking about it with my bro, which is, this lockdown period. At the beginning of it, we were talking about how you kind of like see nihilism take hold, and then you've got a bunch of people who are a lot smarter than I am, just basically saying how, and it's obvious as well, like the whole world basically is in a state of stress because of the pandemic situation, lockdown. Everybody's thrown out of their lives, and a lot of people have it quite a lot worse than another group of people, where it's like, unemployed, or if you're furloughed, you're probably going to not have a job to come back to. There's a bunch of things you got to like consider, and stress is just at an all-time high. But one thing is like, again, being dictated by that chronic state of stress, or being able to do something about it. And because one thing that like Huberman is really good at pointing out is that if you're able to control your internal states, i.e. whether you're stressed or whether you're relaxed, to those states, that puts you in a much better position to be able to control outcomes in your life as well. And it's just basically, again, it's articulating something that I've felt strongly about for a long time. And this lockdown period is a great example of that, where in the first instance, you just see shit like, okay, we're going to go in lockdown, and all of this, you don't like, it's like you don't really get what it means. And then you start to think about all the permutations and stuff. You're like, oh, right, okay, I'm not going to be able to, like, from a personal point of view, it's like, okay, I can't go to work. Like, I physically cannot go to work. So does that mean I have any clients left? If I don't have any clients left, does that mean I'm making any money? If I'm not making any money, like, how the fuck am I going to like support myself? Like, what's going to happen? So you have that initial kind of jacked state of stress. You just get an adrenaline dump, and you're just like, oh shit, everything's all over the shop. But then what I did after I kind of like, settled a little bit, was I literally turned inwards. Internally, I just started looking at all the reasons why the situation I'm in is basically my fault. It's like, that's what's going on out in the world, and I have no control over that. I am a participant in it, in the sense that I've got to go along with what's happening. But but the way it's affected my life circumstances, how have I played my role in that? What have I not done well? And that again is the principle of, like, Jocko Willing talks about, is extreme ownership. Is just, if you do that, then you realize that all the things you can't control, just fuck them off, and everything you can control, which is actually a lot more things than you think. It's even involves how you feel about what your circumstances are. And if you can get a handle on that, and start to realize what role you play in any given situation, even when it feels like it's completely out of your hands, it's total bullshit, there's always something that's in your hands. Then you start to figure out that the role that you played in that and what you can do about it. So from a personal point of view, I've gone and looked at everything internally. Is like, okay, what resources do I have? What's good? What can I do with myself? Which means that in the future, at least I'm making it, anything even remotely like this kind of scenario, I can thrive through it to some degree, and what shortcomings has it shown to me, which I need to be working on. So I've leaned into it, and that is actually, learning it from a neuroscientific point of view is actually what needs to happen. If you start to fall back, then and you're trying to let the situation fix itself, you're in a pretty rough spot. You're not you're inviting on anxiety and depression, basically. Whereas if you lean into it and you take action on some level, even if you do go through the anxiety and depression, the effect of it is less, and you're in control of, or more in control of it as well. So there's that element, and it's basically, we all have the power. We have a lot more power over situations than we believe we do, and if we lean into that kind of thing and take that ownership, then we're able to affect change and be more effective human beings, is what we've been talking about since the beginning of this podcast. So we can be a lot more effective human beings if we're able to lean into that challenge and figure out how to adapt. And there's lots of cases of that happening in this situation, and individual people who feel like there's nothing that they can do is like, nope, I challenge you to go figure out the thing that you can do, because there is something that you can do to make your situation a lot better. I'll give you an example. It's like, there was I can't remember where it was, but there was a pizza shop, like a Neapolitan pizza. They've got their pizza oven is 400 degrees. Yeah, they make pizzas at 400 degrees, and lockdown happens and they can't make pizzas anymore. But so they're like, all right, we don't have a business. And then they started figuring out that there was that they could take. It was something to do with like recycling some plastics, which could be repurposed for some medical grade stuff. And they're like, well, we've got an oven. We can take all that shit, melt that stuff down into exactly what they need and give it back to them. And so they basically adapted their business entirely during that lockdown period to be able to stay open and serve the community in a completely different way. You're like, that's brilliant. Like, it shows you the power, it shows you the capacity that you have to do something different. And that's what I chose to do as well. So I've for me personally, I'm like not completely out of the woods yet with the whole scenario, but I'm definitely doing a lot better than if I decided to just kind of lie in bed and wait for everything to move forward, because that's just a waste of time in life.
Too right, man. Too right. Well said, man. Well said. Yeah, bro. There's just, you got the power. You got the power to change this shit. You got to just believe in that power. And exactly. Just get to your work, man. Get to your work. I love it, man. I love it. How's the rest of the day looking for you? You got much left? You need to get done today. You got much on for the week?
Much on for the week, yeah. Just gonna be plowing on with sessions. Gonna be getting on with working on the program some more. I'm a few weeks away from having like the first iteration of it like completely done and dusted. Nice. But I know that when that's over, I'll just have to take a bird's eye view of the whole thing and be like, oh yeah, that can be better. I can do this better. I can add a piece here, add a piece there. So that'd be cool, man. I just need to kind of get on that a little bit more as well. So last week I spent at my parents' place, which was awesome. They've got an amazing garden. So basically I delivered all my sessions in the garden.
Noticing your lovely bronze complexion today. I love it.
Exactly. I'm the bronze bomber. I don't know who that is. Sounded like a good name.
Deontay Wilder.
Yes, there we go. That was it. I was like, I'm a different version of that. I'm like a lot less mean looking, a lot less powerful, but bronzed up, they're all the same.
Just as effective, dude. Just as effective.
Yeah, exactly. That being effective human being.
Channel your power.
That's it, man. And so that was sick. It was wicked to see everybody and hang out. And then this week, just kind of going back to normal a little bit. I think, nice. Because what I struggle with is being as productive as I could be when I'm at my parents' place. Because this is just like it's just like being home and just chilling is what it's associated with. And but obviously I was there for a week, so I was like, I have to be productive on some level. So I still managed to bash out some stuff. I'll tell you what was hilarious though, man. because I knew I was going to be there for a week, so I can't just like keep munching the food that my mum puts on my plate because I'm just going to come back about 5 kilos heavier. So I ordered some food to arrive at my parents' place on Monday. So I was having it. It's basically like some stuff I can make into a smoothie, and then lunchtime I have a salad. Then basically my thought was at dinner time I'll be having whatever my parents make. And then it was on Friday. My mum goes, I didn't like it when you ordered that food to come home. She just told me straight up. And then I was cracking up. I was like, my mum was jealous of the fact that she just wanted me to eat everything that that she had made.
That's it, man. That's it.
That was too funny.
That is those mama reps.
That's it.
Exactly. She just used to do those mama reps, feeding you younger in the.
Now
look at him. Now look at him. Doesn't even give a shit. Just ordering his own food. Some other woman's cooking for him now. That ain't cool.
Yeah. That's it. I know that ain't cool, man. It doesn't sit well. It was super cute. It was super funny as well. Yeah. I was like, Mom, look, I get it. I didn't actually really want to as well, but I knew I had to, because if I just ate everything you put in front of me, it's not gonna turn out well.
Yeah, you're gonna have an unhappy son, and that's harder, because then I'm gonna be less effective, and then we're gonna have a shit conversation. Yeah. You have to console me and tell me I'm not fat. It's like, I am though. Exactly. I hate
exactly.
this. Yeah.
What about you, bro? What's the week saying?
The week's saying loads, man. Just wrapping up Prescript, actually, my week 16. Yeah. So just like you said, that bird's eye view, take that view at the end of the week, or end of the next couple of weeks, and then actually thinking about getting out to Kenya to see my dad for a week, just before things kick off, with some other stuff we're working on. So yeah, man, maybe kind of hopefully there's travel stuff eases up. I'm not sure how able I am to get out to Kenya right now, but I mean, I have to look into that. So just planning that. That's in the pipe works. And obviously all the other stuff, man. Training early, clients. Interesting, man. It's interesting. Just and then hopefully with Leicester still under lockdown, but other gyms in the country are open. So looking forward to just getting back into a gym, man. We haven't even touched on that, but I mean, looking forward to getting back into a gym. I might even travel up to Loughborough, just kind of get a few sessions in over there, because it'll be cool to see what other gyms are doing right now in terms of how they're socially distancing, and then it'll just give us a bit of an idea. But loads on, man, loads on.
Yeah, amazing, man. What's the situation with lockdown right now in Leicester? It's like how severe has the kind of reaction been?
It's not been too bad, G. I mean, it's not been too bad. I think there's some places where I think it's worse, and it's hilarious. Like, you drive through them right now, and you know where they are. Like, I'm not going to name any names. Everybody in Leicester knows, like, some spots of people just a bit more carefree, and they're not really taking it too seriously. You drive through, and it's like District 9, that movie District 9, it's just like, it's just a bit crazy. And you kind of go there, and you kind of like, I should like wind my windows all the way up and like have like one of those yellow suits for Monsters Inc. Just wear that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think just people are just a little bit more carefree, man. But I can't see it lasting very long. I mean, weird, Leicester, we didn't get this stuff till quite late, and then all of a sudden we just decided to stick around with it. It was like fashionable in Leicester to get coronavirus, apparently. So yeah.
Is it as severe as it's made out to be to justify the lockdown? Is it like was it starting to really escalate, or what was going on?
Apparently numbers started spiking. Obviously, I don't watch the news, man. I don't follow that bullshit. But I mean, apparently that's what it was saying. So like, we've just had a bit more awareness around it. I think that's the best thing. People are a bit more like, oh, we're the black sheep of the country right now, which is a good thing, because I think it's gonna birth us into being overly cautious, and hopefully shit like this shouldn't be a part of our culture kind of going forward, and making people need to be made more aware. So this is making them more aware, and that's the biggest thing. But yeah, apart from that, I can't see it staying much longer than a couple of weeks. So yeah, see what the new normal looks like. Everyone keeps fucking saying that, the new normal. What do you mean the new normal? It's normal. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's gonna some weird times ahead, man. It's probably gonna be a little while.
Interesting, man.
Yeah. Who knows?
Looking forward to just figuring out shit and just seeing which way we go.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, brother. That was good chatting with you.
Yeah, man, let's close off there. That was really good. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Give us a shout if you enjoyed listening in. Just give us a rating, give us a comment, and tell us what you think of the podcast. Yeah, we're going to keep doing this, try and provide some good content for you guys, provide some good stuff for people to resonate with, some good conversation topics, and just, some good honest conversation is what we're all about.
Too right. And share it with people you think you might be able to help become more effective. Obviously, that was today's theme, connecting the dots back into your life, and then looking back so you can look forward, like you said, G. So people out there need it yourself. I know I did. Take it on yourself to go buy that book for yourself if you need to.
Yeah, you need it. Exactly. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Share it with other people. Get the message out there. Cheers, folks. Cheers, brother.
See you later.